And welcome to Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football, presented by our good friends over at SportBuff. Where if you use the promo code ALSFlightdeck10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your entire order. So head over to sportbuffshop.com, use the code, save 10%, buy some nice merch, and support local. I'm Tim Capper. You can find me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. You can also find me on X over at Cliffy D.
Not fit to be tied.
No. Not this time around.
No, it is not.
That's a kink for a whole different kind of podcast that we are not members of or affiliated with.
Yeah. I still want to know if people think that I really chose the wrong title for that podcast last week. But you know what? You live and learn.
It could just be the subject matter was depressing as hell. Maybe that's why people didn't want to divulge. But it happens. Hopefully, everybody will be back now to celebrate the fact that the Montreal Alouettes are back in the win column and managed to secure themselves a home playoff game.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think we're probably going to leave this to the upcoming preview, but we might as well go ahead and talk about it now. It's because it's very similar. Very similar to the game heading into Edmonton last year, where there are certain scenarios that were to occur. And it's almost the same type of scenario that it would be for this upcoming game versus Toronto, whereas either A, if Ottawa loses to Saskatchewan on the early game on CTV, the Owls clinch the division. Or B, Ottawa wins and the Owls beat Toronto. They also clinch the Eastern Division.
Yeah, it's very, very possible, folks, that when it all is said and done this weekend, we'll have an idea. We'll pretty much know if the Alouettes are going to be hosting the Eastern Final or not. I mean, it's all signs are pointing to yes, which is fantastic, and that's essentially what you want if you're the reigning, defending, undisputed Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes. Is you want to be defending your title, so to speak, on home turf. And personally, I'm of the opinion that don't put your fate in other people's hands. Like whatever's going to happen is going to happen between Ottawa and Saskatchewan. Focus on yourself. Focus on going to BMO Field, beating the Argos, going 12-2-1 on the season, and securing that home Eastern Final game and the division all in one shot.
And if that were the case, and we'll get to the game this past week in Ottawa, it would be the first time since 2012 that the Owls would win the East. It's been a while.
Yeah, it really has been a while. And when I think back to what took place between 2012 and today, it's been quite the story. It's been quite the adventure. It's been quite the saga even. So, but obviously things are a lot different than they were in 2012. I mean, really different to tell you the truth. But yeah, I mean, it would be really cool to be able to say, okay, Eastern Final, Percival Molson Stadium, be there. And tickets are going to go on sale almost immediately. So, I mean, if the Alouettes can do their part and get this wrapped up in a neat, tidy package this weekend, so much the better for Alouettes Nation.
Yeah, exactly. And before we get to talking about the game, our game recap, I want to let everybody know that we do have a guest this week. Don't we, Cliff?
We sure do. We were very excited to be joined by rookie sensation for the Montreal Alouettes, number 33, free safety, actually, in relief of Marc-Antoine Dequoy. One Arthur Hamlin will be joining us here on the flight deck. Really excited to be able to talk to him, get his perspective of things as an Alouettes rookie for the 2024 season. It's going to be definitely a fun chat with Arthur. So make sure you folks. I mean, if you're listening now, why would you turn off? But make sure you stay tuned for that interview.
Exactly. And just in case if you want to run ahead real quickly at what time code it is, it's a time code blah, 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 blah. Are you kidding? I'm not letting you know.
No. And if you're a member of Arthur's family or one of his friends and you're just tuning in to hear his interview, stick around. You're going to be entertained. We're going to work hard to entertain you so that you stick around, listen to Arthur's interview, and hopefully come back next week and the week after and the week after and so on.
It's still at time code blah, 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 blah. Oh boy. The Alouettes do beat the Ottawa Red Blacks in Ottawa on Saturday on CTV by the score of 24-12. Before wow, it was just over 23,500 people showed up at TD Place. It was a unique game. Things were not. If you happen to catch a little bit of the post game show on Flightdeck Live, you'll understand where I'm getting at here. But 24-12, okay, that's fine. It really was not perfect, and it pains me to say, Cliff, that the Alouettes this year have not played that perfect game. There have been perfect parts, whether it be a perfect defense, offense, whatever, but they've not put together a perfect game yet this year. And considering where they are, how many games we are currently into the season, it's not that it's concerning. It's just, I think, concerning that they have not been able to improve on certain aspects of the game itself, even though they are 13 games in.
I think what struck me more than anything else, and we talked about this too on Flightdeck Live, is that the Alouettes started off hot as a pistol. I mean, just doing exactly what we wanted them to do, set the tone right away. And we thought that was going to be the tone for the entire afternoon, just based off that immediate pick six, essentially, by Deontay Ruffin. I mean, and then Drew Brown throws another interception to Jeffrey Conte Arcua. Like, okay, it's going to be that kind of game. Like, you felt like, okay, this was the kind of Alouette football that we're used to, a dominant defense and just, slamming the door on your opponent right away, as opposed to waiting until the second half to do so, which, again, I mean, as long as this defense gets to do what they do best, I'm all for it. But then it was a matter of the offense just looking pedantic, looking mid. I even struggled to call it mid because it just really wasn't happening.
It was anemic, especially the first and third quarters. It was anemic.
It really was. I mean, Ottawa was no great shakes either. But I mean, okay, you take advantage of that. This is a chance to showcase what you're able to do. Not to mention, too, you had 5 buses worth of fans making the trip from Montreal to Ottawa to see their team play. And yes, post game, on the field at TD Place, you sit in, you're sitting there talking with fans and everything, and they're all excited. They're happy. They got the win. The Alouettes got the win. They clinched that home playoff game. They're jazzed, and yeah, it's exciting. It's fun, but at the same time, this game was just bleh. Like, just nothing. Like, this was not exciting Alouettes football. This was not exciting CFL football. This was just a game. I mean, this was meh. I mean, really.
It really was. And it's funny to go back and say that the first time that these two teams met, for the home opener, Al's smoked them. And I understand we're 12 weeks in, but again, I think there's only so much that we can. How many times can we say that they need to improve the running game? How many times can we say they've got to come away with more touchdowns than field goals? It's.
And how many times is Cody Fajardo going to go for the home run shot? I mean, listen, he's a phenomenal quarterback, and when he hits it, it's great. But it felt like throughout the entire game, that's what he was looking for more than anything else. I mean, okay, fine, like, you're not so many hitch passes and screens to try and move the ball downfield, which we've also gotten used to from Cody Fajardo. But it just felt like if he couldn't get that home run shot, or even go for his 10+ yard scampers, then that's just enough time for the pocket to collapse, and then he ends up taking a sack and going nowhere. And this is the troubling part. Like, there's a lot of just incompletion. There's a lot of just general malaise. Like, it almost felt like they're only there just so they don't get fined. Like, there was that kind of energy I felt from the Alouettes offense. They're just showing up and hoping to get by on the bare minimum. And that's really how it came across to me watching the game in the stands.
Yeah, and again, but the defense stood up. The problem is in that first quarter is that the Alouettes had 20 total 20 total yards. And it, and one first down, which was, gotten right within the last minute of the quarter itself. And it just, you still come away with 2 interceptions. You have 7 points off of a pick 6. If anything else, and as I mentioned on Flight Deck Live, is that you felt that the defense was just going to be gassed if this kept on going, because again, slow starts. I understand that we still have the pick 6. I get that, but the offense, again, slow starts. And one of these weeks, it's going to come back to bite us in the butt.
It kind of did against BC, and I'll even go as far as say against Calgary too. And even then,
Toronto, first time we played Toronto.
Yeah. I mean, just it's at this point of the season, you shouldn't be playing football like that. Like that's kind of football I would expect to see in June, not in September, going into almost October.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And again, you can look at the stats here. That's fine. They say one thing. Time of possession was dead on. It's where it should be. The Alouettes played. They held the ball for 30 minutes, which is what we want. Especially, it's funny to say that they had, which they did, double the amount of time of possession that they did last week versus Calgary in that tie. It's just, again, defense. I understand defense can win games, but for the Alouettes, the offense really does need to help. It really does. And I don't know what needs to be changed. I mean, do we need to get back? Do we need to get an Austin Mack back? I mean, we know we've lost Tyson Philpott for the year. I don't know. And we found out what it was, by the way, which I'll reference a little bit later on in the news, but we found out exactly what he has. But, when's Mack coming back? Mack is not practicing this week. Again, what has to give in order for this team to get the offense going? And we've already heard the rumbling for some silly reason. We've heard rumblings, Davis Alexander should start. There's nothing wrong with what Cody has done. Cody is consistently consistent Cody. Even with, there were still some issues even with David Alexander starting under center when Cody was hurt. Some of that stuff that Davis was dealing with dates back even before Davis was a starter for those 3 games, four games.
And I think it's just a simple matter of people remember what Davis was able to do. And it was, as you said, first half was usually part of that feeling out process. But then once Davis got comfortable, was making his reads, then he was able to light things up and make exciting plays happen. And I think fans are thinking that if you put Davis Alexander back in, that's instantly going to happen. And it might, but I mean, quite frankly, at this point, this is Cody Fajardo's team. He should be able to do that automatically. And the fact that the Alouettes offense takes forever to get going, and sometimes it gets going and then you can't stop them. Other times they're just chugging along, just, content to do just enough to, get down and maybe kick a field goal. Or if you go 2 and out, maybe Joseph Zima will get you a rouge or 2. And that's exactly what happened in Ottawa. And that, again, that's not offense. That's not scoring. That's mailing it in, quite frankly. I mean, that's hoping and praying that your opponent is going to be so terrible that whatever minimal effort you do is going to be good enough to get the W. And in this case, it was. But again, I cannot overstate, this is not a recipe for success. This is not how you're going to repeat as Grey Cup champions, by playing this boring, pedantic football and hope and pray that your defense comes alive and scores points for you. Because, again, as good as this defense is, and it is still a very good defense by and large, that's not their job. Their job is to stop the other team from scoring, not score points themselves. The offense, their job is to score points, preferably touchdowns. I mean, if all you can truly muster is field goals, then so be it. But again, as we get into into October, and you're playing like the Toronto Argos, the BC Lions, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, like, you're not going to beat those teams with just field goals. I can tell you that right now.
No, some things do have to improve. I mean, it's again, it's not necessarily a broken record that we're talking about it, but it's just things that are consistently, though, one thing will improve, and then in one thing, even with all the wins, I mean, it's again, it's something, again, something really needs to improve, or the Alouettes will, they're in the playoffs, but would that get them to the next level?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know.
Well, with any luck, we're going to see a change in Toronto this Saturday. Hopefully they get it figured out, because yes, it's great that they got off the schneid, so to speak, and got back in the win column, but you got to stay there. And especially against these crucial divisional games, like against Ottawa and Toronto, like, you definitely got to get wins out of those for sure. But I mean, you want to be in a good spot going into the playoffs. And if you're going to be hosting the Eastern Final, that's great. You're going to get a bye week. That's guaranteed. And that's a chance for injuries to heal up and take note of who your opponent's going to be and how you're going to prepare for that as you're hosting them. But at the same time, like, this coasting, as I like to call it, like, that's really what it feels like. Is just coasting. We can't be having that. We really can't. Not at this point. It's not a tenable situation.
No, I agree with you. I agree. Cody Fajardo was 16 of 27 for 226 yards, no interceptions, no touchdowns. Cody, when it comes to rushing, and this has been one of the Achilles' heels, I think, all season, is the rushing game. Fletcher did lead the team with 36 yards. Cody Fajardo had 29. He also had that one touchdown. And by the way, speaking of that one touchdown, Cliff, there's something you and I didn't notice until we were actually able to see the highlights from the game itself. Cody was dealing with something. We don't know if it's a side issue. We don't know what it was, but there was talk of it after the game itself on the Alouettes post-game show. He was dealing with something that he said that had to be, and I'm guessing ribs. This is speculation on my part. He is still practicing. He's not on the actual injured list this week, so I guess that's a plus. But the question is, leading with that, if Cody was banged up that much just after that one play, okay, why was Cody taking the short yardage plays? What happened to Dominic Davis?
It's a fair question. I mean, that's what you went out and got Dominique Davis for, was to do the short yardage. And I thought it was a little unusual to have Cody line up, at the goal line to plunge for the touchdown. And yes, he got it. So, I mean, the ends justify the means, but at the same time, that's what you have your short yardage specialist for, because God forbid your starting quarterback gets hurt on a simple 1 yard TD plunge. And if that's the case, if Cody did tweak something, or something went the wrong way, or whatnot, we don't truly know, and the team's not really saying anything either about it, and Cody's not really saying anything about it either. So, as you said, all we can do is speculate. But I mean, yeah, it really does make you wonder why Dominique Davis wasn't called upon, or even Davis Alexander. I'm sure he too could have dove for that yard and got the tutty, but for whatever reason, Cody Fajardo decided to call his own number and go in himself. But Listen, great. I mean, if that's what you need to, maybe I don't know if there's a bonus involved in that or something. I'm not sure, but I mean, it would absolutely suck to lose Fajardo again over something as simple as getting hurt on a TD plunge, something that he doesn't typically do for the Alouettes.
Yeah. Again, as I said, the issue was with the running game itself. The Alouettes ended up having, quick math here, 76, just under 80 yards rushing. The problem is, though, is that, and you made this good point after we taped the show last week, that's not good enough, obviously, because when we talk about like last week with Calgary, it was anemic, the rushing game. And then yet Saskatchewan comes in and a rookie runs for over 200 yards.
Exactly. I mean,
not
to mention this was a running back that the Red Blacks got rid of because of his supposed bad attitude. Like, so maybe he was just inspired to show up his former team by balling out for his new club. Only he could truly answer that question. But yeah, I mean, it's still not a good look when you play your game and you don't even come close to reaching a number like that. Like 207 yards rushing is incredible. The fact that Calgary gave that up is mind-blowing, considering how well they contained the run against the Alouettes, who some would probably argue is a much better team than what the Rough Riders are. It boggles the mind. I mean, is it truly just a matter of bringing in a new running back that's pissed off at his former team and wants to show them up? I can't imagine it'd be something as simple as that.
Yeah, I know. And with that case in it, the Alouettes again, they are now an 11-win team who are last in the league in rushing yards. I still need to speak with CFL stats guru Steve Daniel and find out some information about that, because that blows my mind.
It does, and I'm sure it blows Walter Fletcher's mind too. That
why
aren't you giving me the rock? I mean, yes, he does get the occasional pass and such, and he does put up yardage as a receiver, which is great, but he's a pretty damn good running back, and you wouldn't know it based on watching Alouettes games because he's not given all that much opportunity to do that.
Yeah. The receiving game seems to be churning on. It really does. I mean, Charleston Rambo, 4 targets for 77 yards. 4 receptions for 77 yards. That Tyler Snead, 40. Fletcher, 39. Cole Speaker for 26. KJG for 26 again. STE 10. And Reggie White, nice to see Reggie White get a catch for 8 yards. There's no problem there. It's just scoring. It's just really just scoring. And
one thing we need to talk about is Charleston Rambo. Like, of his 77 yards receiving, one of them was a 50-yard bomb from Cody Fajardo to get the Alouettes in the red zone.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely outstanding. I mean, and this is, I believe, the second game in a row he's had a 50-plus yard reception.
Yes. I know what you're talking about. I did see. Where did we? It was put up today. I think it's put up by Joy Fieri, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, just incredible. I mean, this is what I mean with when it comes to this offense is you're able to make outstanding plays. It just doesn't feel consistent. Like, the only thing that's consistent is being consistent, but it's very difficult to understand how you're able to connect on some of these massive bombs and then still just walk away with 3 points.
Yeah. It's back-to-back games, 50-plus yard receptions. He has 3 50-yarders in his last 4 games, and 4 in his last 6.
Make a very solid campaign for most outstanding rookie representative for the Alouettes. That's for sure.
What I'm curious to know is how many of them led to touchdowns. That's what I'm curious to know. But despite the scoring woes when it comes to touchdowns, Jose Maltos has been money. And
dinero.
Yeah. And he has his consecutive streak is now over 20. And he is this shy of tying the team record that is held by Shaun White. I think it's 24.
24. And yeah, I mean, with the way the Alouettes offense has been as of late, I mean, there's a very good chance Malthus could tie or even break that record this coming Saturday, which is incredible to think about. I mean, once again, very happy that he's been clutch when it comes to these field goals. But at the same time, like, that can't be your offense. That can't be how you put points on the board. I said it before, and I'll say it again. You're not going to beat these, what I consider to be upper echelon teams, like the Winnipegs, the BCs, and yes, even Toronto, with field goals and only field goals. Like, you really, truly got to put touchdowns on the board. And as great as it is that Malthus has been doing so well in relief of David Cote, and I hope that even when Cote gets 100% again, I still hope that Jose Malthus is still given the opportunity. I mean, you got to go with the hot hand, right? Or I guess in this case, the hot foot.
Yeah,
you got to let Malthus ride this thing out. I mean, as exciting as it'll be to have David Cote back in the lineup, Jose Malthus has just been doing a phenomenal job, and I sincerely hope that he can get to that record, and if not surpass Whitey, then at least tie him. He'd be in great company as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, for sure. Defense, as we were talking about, was just above and beyond for what they normally are. There's everything hasn't been perfect, but the defense has just been playing really, really well. By the way, also props to James Letcher this past week, who had some amazing returns in that second half.
Oh my, that
one for 60. Yeah.
I think it was on that one. There's a couple of absolutely phenomenal blocks that that opened things up, that opened up the lanes for him to get into Red Black's territory. I mean, just incredible. Like that. That's the stuff you want to see, because, and we've talked about this with James post game, not just this past weekend, but before. Is like, it's coming. Like we said, okay, he's already got one against Saskatchewan, one return TD. He's due for more. And it was about this time last year too that Letcher, actually, come to think of it, had a really good game in Ottawa, didn't get a tutty, but then the next game in Edmonton, he went off. And that started his almost every other game streak of scoring a kick return touchdown or punt return touchdown. So if history, maybe history is going to repeat itself, because even though it's not technically in October, the game that's being played, but it was at around this time last year that James Letcher joined the full-time roster and made his presence felt with his ability to return kicks for touchdowns. So maybe lightning strikes twice again. I don't know. I hope so for his sake, because I couldn't see him with just one return touchdown this year.
3 sacks for the team this week. A crazy amount of knockdowns. I mean, they had 7 knockdowns this week versus Ottawa. A lot of them could and should have led to INTs. And obviously, we spoke post game to KB and Ento. He should have had one. It would have been a pick 6 for sure.
100%. I kind of gave him the gears on it. Dude, you had nothing but green real estate in front of you, and hanging his head in shame. And I said, like, we're not mad. We're disappointed because we know what you're capable of. And same idea, though, as with James Letcher. It was around this time where you really got to see Cabinetto catch fire, so to speak. Like, he really came into his own and became that INT machine. Yeah. And we thought it was going to happen again in Ottawa, and it was the perfect opportunity. Like, the ball was practically placed in his hands. That's how close it was, and he just couldn't close. And I feel for the guy. I really do. He deserves it. He definitely deserves those INTs and have a chance for a pick 6. Could you imagine how crazy it would have gotten a TV place with Alouettes Nation in the house and KB Nento, just like that Deontay Ruffin pick 6, and nobody in front of him? It would have been absolutely perfect. But just wasn't meant to be. So maybe Kavion gets a pick six at BMO Field. He's done it before. There's no reason why he can't do it again.
No. Even though I said outside Tyrese Beverett again led the team in tackles. I think he's near the top in the league when it comes to those things. Speaking of sacks, we were talking about how bad it was last year. After checking this week, it is showing a little bit. The Owls are now third worst in the league when it comes to giving up sacks. It's better O-line could easily mean better play on the offense. Cody stays more upright.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's not last year where it was just crazy.
Yeah, having Lawal Uglek back in the lineup, you almost saw immediately his presence, how he was able to be dominant and make the opposing quarterback panic practically when it came to when you got this monster of a man bearing down on you. I mean, there's a few times too where both Drew Brown and Jeremiah Masoli were, I think they got him in their pref vision and started running for their life. So you just know he's looking forward to like getting his hands on a quarterback or smacking balls out of the air like he was doing last year. Having him alongside of Isaac Adeyemi Berglund, who also had a phenomenal game, just looking absolutely outstanding on that defensive line. Having those two, along with Derek Wigan, Mustafa Johnson, Dylan Wynn, Antonio Moultrie. I mean, this defensive line is looking beastly again. I think adding Uguak back into the mix has really given this a fresh look. And I think those guys are going to be amped up to have him lining up beside them. So, I mean, I fully expect this defensive line, which has kind of gone through its trials and tribulations over the past few games. Something tells me that with Uglak in the lineup again, I see things just kind of snapping back into place. And we get to see that same domination that we saw late last year. And once again, could not come at a better time for this Alouettes team.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So with the game itself, again, the Alouettes do improve to 11-2-1. They do clinch a home playoff spot. Stay undefeated on the road. They're currently this season just alone. They're 6-0-1.
Sorry, unbeaten on the road.
Excuse me. Thank you. Hey, here we go.
We're both guilty of this.
yeah. We are now. We are as of now. You are correct, sir. So again, it's on to Toronto. We'll talk about it a little bit more in our preview coming up. But before we do that and go and talk about some news that we've seen this week, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we do have an interview, right?
We sure do. And we are very excited to be able to present a young member of this Alouette squad who was drafted in the third round this year and has made his presence felt already. And doing that while, I won't say replacing, but working as the understudy for one Marc-Antoine Dequoy. You simply do not replace a Marc-Antoine Dequoy so easily, but this young man has stepped into that role and has done a very respectable job thus far. We're very thrilled to be able to talk to him. So I say, without further ado, let's get to meet and let's get to know number 33 on the Montreal Alouettes, Arthur Hamlin. Once again, this Montreal Alouettes team is, absolutely on fire in 2024. And a lot of that has to do with the rookies that are on this team as well. They're contributing and making their part. They're making their voices heard as well. Joining us tonight is one of those rookies. We are very excited to have with us here on the Alouettes Flight Deck, number 33, Arthur Hamlin. Arthur, welcome to the Alouettes Flight Deck.
Thank you, Cliffy and Tim. Thank you guys for having me here. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
First, I got to congratulate you on your hometown win this past Saturday.
Yeah, that was pretty fantastic. Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Arthur is an Ottawa boy. So how was it playing at TD Place? Like, even though you are a member of the Montreal Alouettes, you're still playing at, quote unquote, your home stadium. How was that?
That was definitely a cool and surreal experience. I mean, I've played a ton of games there, whether it be, through community football or all-star games, different things like that. But to play in that stadium when it's actually filled up for a CFL game, that's definitely, a feeling that was unmatched, that was amazing. I had my family out, I had a ton of friends out, and, even people that, in the community through high school, whatever it could be, but just people that messaged me after the game saying, "Wow, I didn't know you were playing," different things like that. So yeah, it's a one of a kind feelings, I guess I would say, for being able to play at home and get that win.
And obviously, I heard this quite a few times because Cliff and I were there in the stands, and we went on the field afterwards. It sort of was like an actual Montreal Alouettes home game, because I heard from you from many of your fellow players and your fellow colleagues there. It was almost as if you were playing at Purcell Molson.
Yeah, it was, I know they brought down a couple of fan buses, and I mean, yeah, it was packed with, Montreal Alouettes fans, and I mean, everywhere you looked, at least for us, when you were coming off the sidelines, that's all you could see, a sea of blue, red, and white, and that was a fantastic feeling. But yeah, I mean, we had everything, going. We had the noisemakers for defense, the air horns were still there. So, I mean, yeah, it was definitely feeling like we were in Percival Molson Stadium. And I mean, personally speaking, I mean, it wasn't too loud there when we were on offense and they were on defense and they were supposed to be making noise, so it wasn't too loud there, but it felt about the same when we were on defense, even though it was our away stadium. So yeah, definitely felt that noise, and was able to play off that and use that to our advantage.
So
Now,
we're just going to rename TD Place to Percival Molson Stadium West.
It looks like it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect that many. I knew there was fan buses, but I had no clue how many to expect. But yeah, that was a fantastic turnout.
I know that Coach Moss kind of doesn't like really to look at the past. He likes to always look forward. But just to let you know, that was the 10th straight win for the Alouettes at TD Place.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
10
so
straight.
it's
Wow.
yeah. I guess we could say it's now, as Cliff and I were joking, it's our house. So, um, you've had quite a few things to get where you currently are in your career, Arthur. And I wanted to obviously let our viewers and our listeners to know about it. First thing I wanted to ask you specifically is really what got you interested in playing football?
Um, I guess probably my family history is the biggest thing that got me into playing football. I grew up playing hockey and soccer as my organized sports, and then doing track and basketball within school growing up and stuff like that. But at home, there was always footballs around. I mean, my dad, he played at the University of North Carolina. His father, he played in the CFL. His brother played in the CFL. So there's a rich family history there. And I mean, my dad, he was a longtime coach after his playing career in the NCAA and in the CFL. And so he was a longtime coach in the Ottawa area and has a rich history in the Ottawa area with football. And I mean, we were always around it. And so even though I started playing hockey growing up, the same way as my brother, eventually we knew we were going to put the football in our hands in high school. And for the both of us, when that did happen, it just felt like the natural thing, and we both fell in love with the sport, and made that transition from playing hockey to football. And so for me, it started in about grade 8, grade 9, I want to say. But ever since that moment, from growing up, I was catching the football with my dad, playing outside in the yard, doing that kind of stuff. But once I took on the actual pads and everything, it felt natural. I excelled, and never looked back from there. But yeah, I would definitely credit that family history, and probably my father and my brother as the biggest influences for my football experience.
Was it anything in particular when I saw where you're playing at Colgate? And was Colgate your first choice coming out? Were other universities in the U.S., I guess in Canada, trying to recruit you to come play for them?
I mean, yeah, I had a lot of recruitment opportunities in Canada, but in the United States, at the time that I committed to Colgate, that was my only offer. But after I had committed and after, I'd played a few games in my post grad year, I did get some other ones, but I mean, I was already committed, didn't feel like posting or announcing anything like that. I was set on stone on going to Colgate University. And I mean, frankly, for me, it felt like the right fit at Colgate. It was a place that was extremely close to home. It was about 4 hours, 3.5 hour drive for my parents to come down for a home game. And I mean, the education that I was able to get there, it was, top notch. And so, I mean, for me, I remember going on my first official visit there and, seeing the campus, and my parents were sold automatically at the academics portion of the school. And so for me, even though there was other opportunities, it was always Colgate. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because it's not an Ivy League school technically. They call it
A
a
hidden
little
Ivy. Yeah.
Ivy, yeah, or
Yeah.
hidden Ivy. That's
Exactly.
right. And but you got to be smart. If you're you can't be a dummy and go to Colgate. So I mean,
Yeah, it's a pretty difficult school, but you're lucky to, now I'm lucky to be an alumni of Colgate University, and that holds a lot of weight in the world. And so, yeah, I'm extremely grateful for being able to have attended the university and the connections that I made there as well.
oh, that is fantastic. And now here you are, living the dream
Exactly.
as a Montreal Alouette.
Yes, I am. Exactly. No place I'd rather be.
I obviously I know there are a few more. There were a couple more things. I know one was a challenge, and one I wanted to ask you about because I didn't know much about it. It's very well known. We saw the story in Montreal media recently that there were some you had some cancer issues when you were at Colgate. Just real quickly, being a student, being a football player, obviously it sounded like you had quite a bit of your family was there to support you no matter what. How tough was it for you to have to go through the treatment and go through the diagnosis and everything and until you were finally clear of the cancer?
Um, well, it was definitely a roller coaster of a ride. I would say, there was some moments that were a lot more dark than others, and a lot of moments that were a lot more, warm in and whatnot. And I would say for me, probably the darkest portion was, figuring out that there was a lump on my neck, and finding out sort of what everything was, why this was happening, and taking all those tests and determining the plan of action. That was probably the scariest part of it all, because you're sort of in the dark of what's about to happen. You're hoping for one cancer over the other, and it was just not the best time period. But eventually you get your plan of action. And so for me, I knew I had 12 treatment sessions that I was going to do. They were 2 weeks apart, so I knew I was going to be going through 6 months of chemotherapy. And for me at that moment, as someone that's, a football player and very oriented in life and they have a schedule, it just, felt right. Okay, this is what we're going to do. I was going through my chemotherapy. I decided to pick up a job because I had free time. Instead of being at school, I was taking a medical leave of absence, and I was still here at home back in Ottawa. And so, I picked up a job at a Good Life Fitness. I was working every single day. I was being able to work out because I had access to a gym right there. And, for me, it was, that plan of action. I'll be ready when the time comes, but I just have this thing to take care of. And for me, right there, that was the grind, that was the process, and it helped me, deal with, everything that was so negative. I knew I had a set goal, and I knew I could accomplish it if I just continued to, wake up and do what I needed to do. So that was probably, that time that really helped me throughout that journey.
And I don't know how to say this, but obviously, I'm sure you may or may not know that Anthony Calvillo did go through his family went through that type of thing too. A few, wow, was it 10 years ago, Cliff, that he went through that situation with
More
him
than
and his
that,
wife?
14. It was back in
Yeah.
2010.
Is it? It's not necessarily war stories, Arthur, and I'm sure. Hope this is coming across. Is it this type of thing where you're able to? It's a weird family to be a part of, but were you able to talk to AC about this type of thing or what you went through, or is it just a matter of you're happy to be able to ring that bell. I hope you understand what I'm saying. I'm not. It's
yeah, you're happy to ring that bell when everything's you know, said and done. Once you accomplish, that sort of goal after everything you've been through, it's definitely, an honor to ring that bell, and you feel grateful for everything that you've gone through. And I mean, everyone's sort of different with that journey. I haven't had the time to sit down with AC and talk about that specifically. I mean, we've talked football and whatnot and
yeah.
other life stuff, but never sat down and talked about that. But I mean, I'd say it's something that's a journey that's completely different for everyone. I feel like
Okay.
I took it in a completely different way than my parents might have taken it. And, I feel like it would have been a completely different way that some of my friends would have experienced it and whatnot, and so on and so forth. And I mean, for me, almost I look at it as, I feel grateful that it was me that took on this burden. And, I don't want other people in my life to have, had to have dealt with that and fought with that and different stuff like that. And so everyone's sort of different in the way that they go through that battle, go through those emotions and whatnot. I mean, it's an incredibly difficult time, but everyone's sort of made different and processes things differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're thrilled that not only did you get through it, but you came out on the other end stronger than ever, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's fair to say that you didn't have cancer. Cancer had you. Not anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, I was, I'm incredibly grateful for the doctors that I had that were able to act on it so quickly. My family doctor, who was, went above and beyond to really get it diagnosed. And yeah, I'm just incredibly grateful for the doctors that I dealt with.
One thing that I looked up when I was doing some history on it to try to, try to get our listeners as much information about you as possible. I see that you played for Team Canada. You played for Football Canada.
Yeah, I
What was
did play.
what was that experience like? Because I will admit, I don't think Cliff and I have spoken yet to any players that actually played for Team Canada. What was that experience like?
It was pretty fun. So I had two opportunities to play with Team Canada. I only played with them one of the times, and that was with the International Bowl down in Dallas, Texas. And so that's a pretty cool event. It's about 2 weeks, and you're down in Arlington, Texas. You land at the airport. Everyone's coming from the different areas of Canada, all to sort of the central location of Toronto. You're sort of meeting everyone in the airport, and then you fly down to Dallas. You guys are in a hotel room. You guys are getting to know each other, going through the meetings, learning the playbook. And I mean, for me, that was an incredible opportunity. Meeting a bunch of guys from around Canada that all loved football. But in terms of the game, that was a fantastic experience for me. Us specifically, we didn't do too well, but we did face a bunch of 5 and 4 stars. That was actually the Team USA that we were playing. So there, it was a pretty stacked team that we had played at the time. But that was sort of my experience. I played with a lot of great guys that went on to have university careers. Some guys are in the CFL now. But I mean, I never did the World Junior Championship. I could have done that, but at the time I had some other priorities that I had to put forward. So I was focused on that. But that was another thing that some of my friends did, and it was awesome to see them accomplish that and win the Worlds in Mexico. I think it was that year.
And I think Team Canada has had a really good name for themselves as of late because they just seem to
Yes.
be beating everybody. And
Yes.
you think, oh, it's just the U.S. No, some of these other international teams are good teams as we've seen as of late. But it's good.
Yeah, I'm seeing the Japan and Austria and all these other sort of places take off with football. And I mean, scrolling through YouTube every once in a while as a football player, you're going through different games and stuff like that. And I've come across some Japanese pro football games and Japanese university football games. So it's pretty cool to see how the game's grown. Yeah.
Cliff?
That's incredible. Well, let's talk about you becoming a member of the Montreal Alouettes. Drafted in the 3rd round this year. I got to see some of your film. When they announced that you were drafted, I I freely admit I didn't get a chance to see a whole lot because you weren't at the CFL Combine this year. I imagine you may have had your pro day at Colgate or somewhere else, perhaps.
Oh no, I was at the CFL Combine this year. Yeah.
Were you? Then I apologize because I.
No worries, no worries.
But the film that I did see of you, your college film, was absolutely outstanding. I could see why the Alouettes went after you. Do you think there was one particular moment, I guess, as part of the combine experience, or even just going through your film, that you think there was one particular moment in your collegiate career that made the Alouettes decide, yeah, that's our guy. We're getting that guy.
I mean, for me, I guess probably, um, the film speaks for itself. I'm a football player. I'm able to, make a play when the ball's in the air. I'm not going to give up. I feel like this film itself, you can see who I am as a football player, hard nosed, willing to do the tough jobs. A team player.
Mhm.
And I mean, for me, I got the chance to work with Coach Thorpe personally at the combine. He was our DB coach there, so I was able to be in the film room. Really take him in as a coach, and I feel like that was another potential thing that could have helped with that process. I mean, he could have seen me in the film room, how I analyze film, how I break stuff down, stuff like that, and it could be a variety of reasons. I think I was one of the top DBs, and at that point, all the DBs were sort of flying off the board, and I was lucky enough to be someplace that's so close to home. I would say, I'm very happy with the situation here in Montreal. Feel like I have a great team here. Feel like I have some great players to learn off of, and I couldn't have been more ecstatic when I saw my name go to saw that number, that 514 area code on my phone on the draft night.
Now, talk about. I think they actually showed a viral video of you in your house, like when getting the
Yeah.
call from Danny
Yeah.
Machocha. How cool is that? Tell our listeners and viewers just what goes through your mind. As you said, you see the 514, you know who's calling you.
Yeah.
Take us through that.
Definitely cool. I mean, earlier in the day, I'd gotten a call actually just confirming that this was my number and this was where to reach me from Montreal, and so that was definitely, like, okay, that's cool to know. Maybe it could be them. And for me, I mean, I had a ton of family and friends over at my house. And so when I got that call, I knew it was Montreal, and my heart was racing. Sort of walking around the house and just going back and forth, and people are trying to record you, ask you who it is and stuff like that, and you're just sort of focused on the call. And so that was definitely a crazy moment for me. But I remember finally getting off the call, telling everyone it was Montreal, hugging my parents. And then, I mean, my dad, he's the big football guy in our house. So, I mean, he immediately ran to his phone to be able to tell my uncle, be able to tell family, be able to tell all the coaches that he's worked with and stuff like that. And so, it was a huge thing, and I was so happy to be able to get it on video for sure.
Yeah, I love those videos. I always get excited when I see them just because it's such a raw, real moment, and just to finally get that confirmation that you're part of this fraternity now. You're going to be a part of something special. And for a young player like yourself, I mean, it's the culmination of all the hard work, would you say, of going through university, and especially you going through your cancer scare and everything, all the work and sacrifice you had to put into that moment to finally get that call and them to say, yep, you are now a Montreal Alouette.
Exactly. I mean, it's everything you wish for. And I mean, I remember being that little kid in the stands, falling asleep at CFL games, when it was the Ottawa Renegades, not even the Ottawa Red Blacks. And
Oh boy.
I mean, yeah, so it was definitely, a full circle moment. And, it feels grateful for, being able to be recognized in that moment for all the work you've done.
As we've seen this season, Arthur, it's been a next man up mentality, or as Coach Moss has been saying, next guy out of the hangar. You've had your chance recently, obviously, with Marc-Antoine Duquois going down with a concussion issue and stuff like that. What was it like to actually get, to be told, obviously, everybody's rooting for everybody on your team, but once you heard that Duquois was not able to start, what went through your mind, knowing that I'm most likely going to be starting for the first time, and I'm going to be playing one of the biggest parts of the defense for that particular game?
Honestly, for me, it's I don't want to say it's not the biggest switch, but as a player, you always prepare like you're the starter. So getting that, you're up, pat on the shoulder is basically okay. Like now I'm just gonna be doing it for real. It's not just practice. And I mean, for me, I treat practice like it's a game. And so when you get to the game, it's not like it's the craziest of moments. And so for me, it was like, okay, this is my time. I'm getting my chance. Let me make the most of it, and let me go out there, do what I need to do. Let me make sure that I get my guys in the right spot. Let me make sure that I'm in the right spot, making sure I do my job, and just go out there and have fun. That's the big thing. It's the game we've been playing it since kids. You don't want to think too much, put too much on your plate. You don't want to get anxious out there. So just have fun. Don't show any fear, and just go out there and as my dad says, hoop and holler and have a good time.
Is there any difference between playing with the ones versus the twos versus on all the teams that you have played on for the Alouettes? Is there any real difference that you've noticed?
I mean, not for. Guys are all prepared. Everyone's prepared. You're gonna go out there. Everyone's gonna be talking the same way. It doesn't matter if you're a one or a two. You're gonna get the same, talking. You're gonna have the same guys sort of, highlighting different things. And I mean, for us, if you look at the game roster, like it's very small. There's not a lot of people on there, and so when you look at the twos, it's ones in different positions. It's guys moved around. It's guys that have started games. Getting their chance to go back into the lineup because, as you said, there's injuries and there's all sorts of things. So there's a ton of guys that really are ones, but it's all based on what's available and what's in front of us. And so getting in those moments, everyone's sort of always on the same page. Everyone's sort of tied in the knot. Everyone's knows what needs to be done, and everyone executes it basically in the same way. That's what we try to do, try and be perfect all the time. And so, there's not much difference between going out there with the ones or twos. You have that confidence always that whoever it is, they're going to get the job done.
Okay.
All right. Now, as a rookie, along with Jeffrey Conte-Arcu, Micah Roan, I don't think I'm missing anyone here as far as at least national rookies go. I know hazing isn't a thing anymore, but for example, during training camp, did they force you to stand up and sing in front of the group? Did they make you do silly things? Like, was there any sort of, not hazing per se, but was there any sort of things that they kind of did just to initiate you, so to speak, into the club?
No, there's not too much. You go through. You got the basic ones. I mean, the same thing goes. You got your little talent show, and that's about it. You got your little introduction there, but it sort of ranges. Different guys you'll get taken under a wing maybe or stuff like that. It sort of depends, but there's nothing too much outside of the box other than that. Doing a little talent show, having some fun with the guys when you're in the grueling schedule of camp.
Now, there's no rookie dinners, right? Like you and the other rookies haven't been invited to dinner with the guys, and then all of a sudden you're stuck with the bill.
No, but if that were to happen, that's what it is. You know what I mean? It's your introduction. I mean, we're lucky enough to be able to be played to play the sport we love. So if that's what it was, just hope the guys don't order too much, I guess.
Wait a minute, we're meeting at Gibby's tonight. Yeah, if you get that invitation, it's like, I'm sorry, coach wants me to stay late. I'm sorry.
Find any excuse.
Obviously, the team's been doing very well this year, Arthur, and as the fans have seen, the defense, like usual, has played a huge integral part in this team this season. What have you seen that has really impressed you about the team, whether it be the defense or the team in general, that so far this far into the season?
Yeah, definitely. I would say the mentality. I mean, during my time at Colgate, it wasn't always the best of times. We did struggle, and so being on a good team like Montreal is, having the mentality, the know that we're never, we could be down, but we're never out, and to always continue fighting, always continue to play like it's a 0-0 game. That's sort of the mentality factor that I would say has been the biggest that I've noticed during my time with Montreal. Just the ability to constantly stay in a game and not worry about the scoreboard and continue to do what we need to do as things fall into place, because some teams, guys need the big rewards to happen to buy in or lock in, but us, we'll do the little things until everything starts to pay off, and that's probably the biggest thing I've noticed.
Has Coach Thorpe taken you personally aside, especially in relief of Marc-Antoine Dequoy? Has he just basically had anything to say as far as how you're going to approach things at the free safety position, or has he just said, you know what to do, I've got confidence in you, just do your job?
Well, yeah, definitely have those dialogues, in meetings, and to have those dialogues on the field about, different intricacies or different things that you see on the field. But, there was no big like, oh, you got to lock in all of a sudden when, you're thrown into the fire. I mean, I was ready to go. I feel like Coach knew I was ready to go. There was nothing that needed to, really be extra or added or taken out or anything like that for when, I had to make a start. And, I felt like I was trusted completely in that position. So, I mean, I prepare all the time. Like I'm going to be playing. I'm going to prepare like I'm going to play in multiple positions. So, I didn't feel like there was any big thing like that happened during that time. No.
So it's basically what, like, Tim, about this with when it comes to Vernon Adams, he always says, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I think you've adopted that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You always got to be ready. You never know what's going to happen. So always got to be prepared, and that's, the big thing, being prepared for whatever's, going to happen. If you go into a situation unprepared, that's the worst feeling. So, you never want to be put in that sort of anxious position.
All right, we've got a big game coming up on Saturday, going to Toronto, BMO Field, taking on the Argos. If you guys win, you basically lock up the Eastern Division, and you're hosting the Eastern Final. I mean, what's the vibe right now? I mean, is there excitement? Is there nerves? Is it like, are you just treating it like another game? Like, what's the vibe right now in the locker room as you guys get ready for Saturday night?
Well, all focus is on this next opponent. Guys understand what's at stake, but in terms of, playing for it, we're just approaching this like it's every other game, because, I mean, we approach every single game like it's the most important thing. So going to the next game with that same mentality and focus on taking care of business, focus on executing our game plan, and everything else will take care of itself if we do that. And so the guys are focused on winning this next game the same way that it's going to be on the after this game's finished. We'll be focused on the next game, and you know what's at stake, but you don't want to count your eggs before they hatch. And so just continue to focus on what's in front of you as opposed to what lingers in the future. Definitely know what's at stake and know what's at cost, but focused on getting everything done step by step.
And I'll do this one, Cliff, because you used VA earlier to quote another former Alouette coach, Arthur, Mark Trestman, win the day.
Win the day. Exactly. I like that phrase. The only easy day was yesterday. That's another one I like. So yeah, exactly. Win the day.
I like that one too. Okay.
I definitely like that one. Awesome. Arthur, before we let you go, let everybody know, if you're on social media, this is the time. Drop your handles. Let everybody know where they can follow you, because quite frankly, you got to start showing this guy the love Alouettes.
I appreciate you guys, Cliffy and Tim. My socials, I mean, basically everything's just Arthur Hamlin, ARTHURHAMLIN. I think there may be a 3 or a 34 next to here, something on Twitter or something like that. I'm not too sure, but for the most part, just Arthur Hamlin, you should be able to find me. Yeah.
Awesome. Arthur, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Wish you all the best of luck for the rest, not just for this coming Saturday, but for the rest of the season, as hopefully the Alouettes do the thing, punch their ticket to hosting the Eastern Final,
Exactly.
and onwards and upwards to the rest of a very, very exciting season.
Well, thank you guys, Cliffy and Tim. It was a pleasure to be here. It was a pleasure to speak with you guys, and yeah, I just got to take care of business. That's the only thing on my mind. Take care of business. Exactly.
It was nice to know that despite what Arthur has gone through, even before his pro career started, that he's been able to overcome and he's been able to continue with what he's done. And I would expect that this young guy will get many more chances with the Alouettes.
Oh, without question. Even when Marc-Antoine Decoy comes back into the lineup, it's going to get to a point where you're going to have a hard time keeping this young man off the field because he's just been that good. And you hear the passion in his voice. You hear how badly he wants this, and he realizes he's got a great opportunity and he's in a great situation for his rookie campaign of the Canadian Football League. I mean, you couldn't ask for better than what Arthur Hamlin has been given right now. So again, such a fine young man. We definitely appreciate him coming on the show, chatting with us, chopping it up. Definitely appreciate him spending a little bit of time. And we hope that you, Alouette Nation, get to appreciate what this young man's able to offer, because I got a feeling he's going to be a member of this organization for a long, long time. And
yeah,
I'm all for that. I am 100% here for that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Don't forget, we are on social media and we're on the internet. Many places where you can find our past archives, our current shows. Best place to do is head over to our homepage, is over at www.alouettesflightdeck.ca, where that is the main archive for all the shows, all 9+ seasons of the show. Also, you can find us on X over at Alouettes FL Deck, Alouettes Flight Deck Pod on Facebook, and on Instagram and YouTube. You can find us over at Alouettes Flight Deck. Also over on Twitch, where you can find currently the replay of of our post-game show, Flight Deck Live. That's over at twitch.tv/Alouettes Flight Deck. By the way, speaking of YouTube, before, you can also find all the shows, whether it be in audio format, video format, or you can find our companion post-game show, Flight Deck Live. All of the previous shows that we've done over the the last 2 years. So, and obviously everything will be there once we do go live. So make sure you do hit the like button, subscribe. Make sure you just check the bell button to know when we do go live, because when we do, we want you to make sure that you do join us and watch the show. So, yeah. Other than that, you know what? I know we have a couple of things planned. We're thinking some stuff. You'll want to make sure that you do have the bell rung or watch our social medias, because we do have a couple of things that we have, that we have planned for Thanksgiving. But we'll see those come to fruition. But you won't know if you don't follow us.
Exactly. Make sure, tell a friend, tell a coworker, tell everybody about the Alouettes Flight Deck. Make sure everybody is subscribed. Make sure that everybody is following along, because we say this every week. We want you to be we do this for you, and we want you to be on board with us as well. So that's everything down there. If you're watching us on YouTube, that's everything down there. So make sure you're on board. Simple as that.
Exactly. And speaking of Thanksgiving, if you want to rep the cartoon bird shirt, head over to flightdeckgear.ca. You still should have time in order to get one by the time before the game comes around, because we have a bye week next week. Get this week and buy another bye week. Should have time to get that shirt or any other shirt that we currently have available on the website. So again, head over to flightdeckgear.ca. And again, about Thanksgiving, second annual fan meetup. It will be once again at the same spot that it was last year. We'll be going from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Give you an hour before kickoff on Thanksgiving Monday. And I said we got a couple things that we're hoping to do, and we do have a few giveaways that we're going to give away also.
There you go. Who doesn't like free swag, right?
Exactly. Before we talk about the upcoming game this week, I have a couple of news and notes for the game. It's from the Alouettes this week. First thing, that this past week, the Alouettes, for the second year in a row, spent some time over in Ganawage, which is the reserve in South Shore of Montreal. At the same time, they also announced that they will be taking part in when it comes to the I guess we can call the Indigenous Games. I don't know what else to call them, but they will be repping an Alouettes Indigenous logo on their helmet this week versus the Toronto Argonauts, as will all other 8 teams in the CFL this upcoming weekend. It's considering what our current logo is. It's a very unique idea what they have done to the logo itself. It was done with a local artist. That's all that matters. And again, in pregame, they will be wearing the orange jerseys, which the team has already told us that they will be auctioning off again, like they did last year.
Yeah, and I have to say it's so great to see all 9 CFL teams participating in this, the usage of Indigenous logos as a tribute. That's the thing. People talk about Washington's NFL team and Cleveland's baseball team formerly having misappropriation, if you will, a cultural misappropriation, using that sort of imagery as like as a mascot or something to cheer for or something like that, and trying to paint it as a tribute to the First Nations people, and that wasn't it. However, the fact that Indigenous artists were responsible for creating all 9 of these CFL logos is absolutely fantastic. And I have to say, the Alouettes logo, the idea of turning the M bird into a dream catcher of sorts, is extremely cool. And I am really excited to see how it's going to look on the Alouettes helmets this Saturday. Not to mention, too, having the orange jerseys as well, which is a big part of the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. I think it's an absolutely fantastic thing. You will be able to bid on those jerseys again, I imagine, and I know a lot of fans snapped up all those jerseys when they became available via auction. I wouldn't be surprised if again this year all those jerseys end up going for a pretty price too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going for if you want to buy one, we know it's going to a great cause. That's the main thing. So it's going to the entire community over on the South Shore. So it's good to hear. It really is. And again, let's see what this looks like. I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see if the Alouettes are going to do something different with their center stripe, because like Calgary did the same thing for theirs. They made a slight modification to theirs. So we'll have to see on Saturday night. So.
Yeah, and I'm also curious too. Are they going to just use the logo like that we see there, or are they going to incorporate the word mark, which includes Alouettes and I'm going to try to pronounce this, Teotihuaca? I believe that's the Indigenous name for Montreal. I don't know if they're going to incorporate that into the logo, so to speak. This Indigenous logo. If they do, that'd be awesome. If not, if they just go with the as I said, this Dreamcatcher M bird. If they go with that too, that'll be fine as well. But I'm curious to see just how far they're going to go with this. I really like it. I really think it suits the mood for this event, for this weekend. I think, quite frankly, all 9 teams did a fantastic job with their Indigenous logos. And I'm also seeing too, both Saskatchewan and Toronto, all of their gear that they're selling with those logos sold out. Wow. That's absolutely amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah, that really is cool. That really is cool, actually.
I don't know if the Alouettes are planning to sell any merchandise with their logo on it, but I hope they do, because I think, especially too, if any of the proceeds would be going towards any Indigenous charity or anything like that, so much the better. But the fact that Saskatchewan and Toronto sold theirs out almost immediately, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It was reported this week in the local Montreal media. There's a story done specifically on Tyson Philpott, and it's something that you and I have been talking about. We were curious to know what type of injury, because as we saw, it seemed to be a fluke injury itself, Cliff. His cleats getting caught in the turf. First and foremost, Tyson was able to say that specifically that he does not blame the turf. even though as both you and I have talked about many a time, it may be due for a change. And it makes me wonder if just this one thing sort of pushes the team to partner with McGill to try to put a new field on for the first time in 14 years. We'll see.
I hope so. I mean, I hope Pierre Carl Peldo, got wind of this, and while Tyson is not willing to blame the turf for it, we'll blame the turf for it. I mean, if that's what it's going to take to get a new turf, and hey, while you're putting on the new turf, how about we do something about those oddly shaped end zones? I think that's can we be done with that now? I mean, for Christ's sake, they don't even use the track that track at Percival Wilson Stadium. Can we do something about that now? Can we finally admit that the Alouettes are the primary tenant at Percival Wilson Stadium? Yes, they are renting the facility, but it's for them. They're the should you not be taking care of your main client? I mean, I don't know.
It would benefit the Redbirds too when they play at home.
Absolutely. I mean, it would just make for a better overall aesthetic as well. And let's face it, that turf is starting to show its age just a little bit. I think this would be an ideal time to pump some money into this. If McGill University is waiting for Pierre Carl Pelado to foot the bill, then maybe if that's what's going to take, then maybe it would behoove him to consider that. If only for the simple fact that players are less likely to get injured tripping on what is essentially a 14-year-old turf.
Yeah.
So maybe.
And by the way, speaking of, I don't know if you noticed it. It's a quick sidebar. Did you notice the differences between the two turfs in Ottawa and Montreal? Even Montreal is an older turf, I still think Montreal's turf felt a lot better. It felt a lot spongier than it did in Ottawa. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
Oh no, I've got relatively new shoes that I actually wore last weekend, and I did feel a difference. I'm like, wow, really? Like, and the Red Blacks have only been back playing football this is their 10th anniversary, their 10th season, so to speak. So they too could probably benefit from a bit of a refresh as well. But I mean, all of this to say that, yeah, Montreal really needs to make some serious considerations with their field. I mean, I am really looking forward to one day having Pierre Carl Pelado on this podcast, and this is among the many things I would want to talk to him about. What's to be done with the stadium as it sits right now, or is this something that would help lead to perhaps building a stadium of your own for the Alouettes? Well, one that the Alouettes own outright and can lay 100% claim as their own, or do you buy Percival Molson Stadium from McGill? I don't see that happening either, but something's got to give. Let's just sum it up by saying something's got to give. We can't have our superstars getting injured playing on raggedy old turf.
Yeah.
End of story.
So we did find out finally that obviously we know Tyson's foot is in a walking, right foot is in a walking boot. And from what the report said, he will be still in a walking boot for more than a couple of weeks to come. But we did find out that he had suffered ligament damage to his Lisfranc joint, Cliff. I had to look it up. I had not heard of it.
Really? It's the same one that befell Nathan Rourke actually in 2022.
Oh, interesting. Okay. But did Rourke have a break? Because Tyson did not.
I truly don't recall. This was about 2 years ago, and it didn't seem to affect his desirability for NFL teams to want to work him out. But yeah, it was one of those things that he had to go. He had to go through it. He went through the rehab, went through everything, and look at him now. He's back playing, and I mean, doesn't seem to be affecting him on the whole. So.
Yeah,
which would bode well for Tyson as if he's looking for sort of a benchmark to go with as far as dealing with an injury like this. You can take a look at what Nathan Rourke's been able to do as a result, and coming back and playing at a high level again. So I think Tyson is got to feel encouraged by that at least. I hope he is.
Yeah. He said it was reported that he will still be in a walking boot for the next 3 or 4 months. He did undergo surgery in August to insert a screw into the foot, and then will undergo another procedure in December to have it removed. Although it can take a year or more to return to intensive exercises, he's been advised the recovery period will be 9 months since no bones were fractured. So he is optimistic that he will be ready by training camp.
I hope so. For his sake, I hope so. It's tough to lose the superstars of this league, and Tyson absolutely was one of those in 2024. Without question, he was having a phenomenal campaign, and it sucks to think what could have been had he not gotten hurt, and to think over something as stupid as the turf monster getting him and sidelining him for this long boggles the mind. And as I said, but if that's the thing that's going to be the spark, if you will, to lead the discussion on replacing the turf at Percival Molson Stadium, then one could kind of look at him as like taking one for the team, so to speak.
Yeah, that's taking a giant one. I tell you. Coming into this week versus the Toronto Argonauts, Cliff, obviously, as we mentioned earlier, is that all that the Alouettes need to do is only one of two things needs to happen for the Alouettes to clinch the Eastern Division for the first time since 2012. And it is A, Ottawa needs to lose to Saskatchewan in the early game on Saturday on CTV, or B, if Ottawa does win, Montreal does need to beat the Toronto Argonauts in Toronto on Saturday night. And again, one of those two things does happen, then Montreal will win the division. Yeah.
So, as I said earlier, don't put your fate or destiny in someone else's hands. Make your own luck. Make your own destiny. If I'm Montreal, I wouldn't even look at the score, quite frankly, of the Ottawa-Saskatchewan game. I wouldn't even base anything on that. Just put the blinders on, laser focus on this game against Toronto, and just doing everything you can to win and win conclusively. Don't just eke out a win. Don't just luck into a win because they made more mistakes than what you did. I would love to see a very convincing Alouettes win so they can say without question that, yes, they did clinch the Eastern Division. They will be hosting the Eastern Final in mid-November. I mean, that should be you would think that would be a motivating factor enough for these guys, and I want to believe it is. Don't worry about what happens with Ottawa and Saskatchewan. That game's going to go how it's going to go. Whatever happens, happens. I mean, if Ottawa happens to lose and Montreal clinches without even breaking a sweat, I mean, I guess that's something good, but at the same time, I don't want it to affect how they prepare for this game against Toronto, because Toronto has just been really interesting over the past few weeks. I'm baffled at how this team can go to BC Place and thoroughly dominate against the BC Lions, who, quite frankly, made the Alouettes look foolish at home a few weeks previous. And then last week, managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I mean, that was a back-and-forth game that could have gone either way, and Hamilton, give them full marks. They're still alive in the playoff race, despite being in fourth place, dead last in the Eastern Division. They still have an opportunity to cross over into the West, if you can believe that. I mean, that kind of boggles the mind too. But I mean, this Toronto team, we just don't know which Toronto team is going to show up. We don't know which Chad Kelly is going to show up for the Argos. Simply put, the Alouettes can't worry about that. I mean, I still go back to the Eastern Final last year and how everybody and their mother was convinced Toronto was just going to wipe the floor with the Alouettes, and it turned out to be the exact opposite. And I would love nothing more than for Montreal, just like they did last week against Ottawa, set the tone right away. Whether it doesn't have to be a pick six necessarily, but just get that first shot in and just start dictating your own pace and make Toronto catch up to you. And honestly, it's going to take all three facets of this team to win this game. You can't just rely on your defense. You can't just hope that James Letcher is going to go off and return kicks and Jose Maltos is going to nail field goal after field goal. I want to see a complete dominant game from the Montreal Alouettes on Saturday. I want to see them do what I know that they're capable of doing and what they have done throughout the year. At times, this team has truly looked like world beaters. We haven't seen that in a while now. I really want to see this Alouettes team simply dominate all three aspects of the football. If they can do that, I know for a fact they'll get the win. They'll sew up the Eastern Division. It'll be theirs. And we get to go watch the Eastern Final at Percival Wilson Stadium in November.
Do you know how many, we'll talk about it at the beginning, you know how many similarities there are to the setup for this game this week? You know, the scenarios of when they can they clinch or can they not clinch? Because that was almost the same thing last year when they went to Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
These things, it's funny. I just thought of how much more similar it is. And if I remember correctly, last year was the game earlier that weekend. If that team had lost, Owls would clinch already. Or if that team won, they would have to win. Same scenario that it is this week. Also, like last year, Cliff, they're going into a bye, just like last year. So many similarities for this type of clinching scenarios. So
very true.
Who knows? Who knows? The Alouettes are actually a road favorite. They are currently a 1.5 point favorite at Toronto with a 51.5 over under. Alouettes being is considering recent history in Toronto to be a 1.5 point favorite does show, it does show how the sportsbook are looking at the Alouettes.
I mean, it's kind of funny to think about, but after years upon years of absolute failure at BMO Field, the Alouettes actually have a 2-game winning streak there. It's wild to think about, but and they want to add to that. They want to make it a 3-game streak, and it's entirely doable. I think 1.5 points. I don't know. I don't see it. It's hard, especially with, how both teams have been playing as of late.
Yeah,
very Jekyll and Hyde as far as one awesome game, one absolute stinker, one awesome game, one mid game. You just don't know, especially with both of these teams. You don't know which team's going to show up to face the other. And I guess that's kind of the fun. I guess that's kind of the mystery of it all. But I think simply put, Montreal can come in and dominate this game. They've done it before. They've shown that they can go to that curse, if you will, over BMO Field isn't there anymore. Simply put, they just really have to take care of business. They have to execute. They have to do the things that we know that they're capable of doing, and they'll get the win. Otherwise, Toronto, they've got a lot to prove as well, and they want to. They no doubt saw what happened to Ottawa, who technically has a better record, but I mean they're just as susceptible as well. And Toronto's going to want to make a case of their own to be in the playoffs and host a playoff game of their own too. It's going to make for a very interesting Saturday evening, though, at BMO Field. And it's funny you mentioned the points earlier about the similarities to last year and this year.
Mm-hmm.
Another similarity is that you and I are going to be going to that road game, just like we did last year.
It's true. Damn it, you're right. There's another similarity. You are right, sir.
I mean, we don't have to get on a plane to go to this game, but yes, the Alouettes Flightdeck crew is going to be at BMO Field this Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. So far, undefeated on the road since 2023. So that also kind of bodes well.
Speaking of, and a quick shout out, and I did not get your names, but I want to thank there's nothing more satisfying to know that you have, that our listeners, A, besides our voices, know what we look like, and B, are able to shout us out, because I was there dealing with some ticket issues and heading back to our group on Saturday. And it was a couple that was on the fan bus also, the Owls fan bus. And they said, all of a sudden here, Tim Capper! So I apologize for not getting your name, but I want to thank you for giving me the shout out and giving and supporting supporting the show as you have, and it's greatly appreciated. It really is. It's really greatly appreciated. So.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. Like, so many people have been showing us love over the past few weeks, and we definitely appreciate each and every one of you that reaches out, leaves comments, and sends us notes. Anything, whatever it takes to get in touch with us, we appreciate it. We do see every comment. We want to reply as much as we can. And yeah, I mean, especially if you see us live in your stadium, not just at Percival Molson Stadium, but if we happen to be on the road, supporting this Alouettes team, when you come say hi, that'll make our year. That'll make it all worthwhile. And just knowing that people are showing us the love, it's definitely appreciated. As we keep talking about, we want you to be part of the flight crew, and that's how you do it. And once again, on behalf of Tim and myself, thank you so much for showing the love, for supporting, and please keep it going. Keep it going, because we're loving every bit of this, and it just inspires us to make better content for each and every one of you.
Marquette Toronto Quality is listed as a full participant the past 2 days, Cliff. Jamar McGlosser also is a full participant. He, as we know, he is still currently on the 6th game, but the way he's practicing, it's very possible that he will be back. It's fine. I find it funny that they put Caleb Evans back on here, but we know he's done it for the year. Mustafa Johnson was limited on Tuesday, but did not practice on Wednesday. Same thing goes for Tyler Richards. Interesting thing is that they put their injury as a neck injury. We'll see how that plays out, because we will know tomorrow if either of these two guys on the defensive line are going to be playing at all on Saturday. So we'll find out specifically tomorrow, but obviously we'll find out for sure on Friday when the depth charts come out. Nate Bahar, he was a full participant today. Didn't practice yesterday, but because of an illness. And this is what I don't know what to think about this one, Cliff, but I guess again we'll find out. Luau Ugalak did not practice at all. Well, I guess he either or wasn't here because he's not listed as being there on Tuesday, but he was limited today due to a quote unquote shoulder. And it's very possible it's that same shoulder that he had rehabbed before he came up and joined the Alouettes. So
definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, hopefully it's just a minor thing especially for Lawal, because as I said, we got to see him post game on Saturday, and you could tell he was just thrilled to be back in the lineup, back doing what he loves, back in Montreal as well. I mean, you knew he was going to go try his hand at the NFL, and I give him full marks for doing that, but so good to have him back in Montreal. So good to know that he's going to be a part of this Grey Cup playoff run. Man, that's all. So we're going to keep hope. We're going to keep positive that this is just a minor thing with his shoulder, because it would absolutely suck to, like Austin Mack, coming back, reestablishing himself, only to go in the 6-game list. So hopefully that won't be the case with Lawal, because I mean, this, as I said, this defensive line looks so much different with him in it, and back to looking dominant, back to looking dangerous, and let's just hope that stays that way.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Looking real quickly at the Argonauts practice this week, and one of the interesting ones, Cliff, is Kadeem Carey was limited on the last 2 days because of a calf injury, a potential calf injury.
Oh, and let's not forget, Kadeem Carey really went off on the Alouettes the last time these two teams played at Percival Molson Stadium. It was there where we kind of started seeing how this run defense has been regressing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest. I mean, you obviously want the best, your best players taking on the best players, and Kadeem Carey is definitely that for the Toronto Argonauts. But there's a little part of me that wouldn't be too upset if, for whatever reason, we don't see very much of Kadeem Carey, because you give him the rock against the Alouettes, he finds ways to get yards and even score touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. Before we go, Cliff, any last words, any things that people need to look for in this matchup versus Toronto? I mean, obviously, we want the team to have as much of a perfect game as possible. As you're saying before, it's very positive. It could be a low-scoring game. This could easily be a shootout. It can also be a blowout. So we don't know. It's the Owls need to come out strong, have a strong first quarter, whether it be a combination of defensive touchdowns and offensive touchdowns. But the Alouettes need to improve on their first quarter. like they've had over the last couple of games because they've just been absolutely atrocious, whether you're leading or not through a defensive touchdown. The Owls, in my opinion, really need to get started fast, a la like they did in the Eastern Final last year.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is just get in Chad Kelly's kitchen right away. You saw what happened the last time he played the Alouettes. I mean, it did not go well for him. And I'm sure that's going to be weighing on his mind a little bit. And he's, as part of his quest, if you will, to reestablish himself as one of the top quarterbacks in this league, I think he's looking at this game too as a testing ground, a litmus test to see just where he is as far as quarterback for the Toronto Argonauts. I think Montreal's got to be able to take advantage of any sort of doubt, any sort of uncertainty he may have behind center, facing this team that basically ruined his near perfect year last year. And simply put, this defense just has to come alive and just get in his face and make him make those mistakes that he made in the Eastern Final last year. Simply put, we said it before, and we'll say it again. This Alouettes team needs to be dominant. It needs to be the Alouettes team that we saw earlier this year in all three facets. They can do that. They're going to get this win. They're going to sew up the Eastern Division. And then you can start, I don't want to say looking ahead necessarily, but you can start planning for how you're going to manage your players going into that home stretch, because that's going to be a very key element as well. If they do clinch the Eastern Division, is who do you rest? Who are you going to give reps to? Who do you want to make sure it doesn't get rusty? There's going to be a lot of that going on over the next few weeks, especially if Montreal clinches on Saturday. So whether it's because Ottawa won or because Montreal won, if they do end up clinching the Eastern Division, a lot of discussion is going to be have over personnel. And at what point do you start resting players? What point do you kind of do what Toronto did last year, as maybe rest some guys some weeks, and go back and forth? You bump up the practice roster players and give the veterans a chance to catch their breath a little bit or rehab any nagging injuries. There's a lot of potential that's going to happen. And we won't know, Tim, until late Saturday night, whether the Alouettes win or lose, whether the Ottawa Redblacks win or lose. There's a lot that's going to unfold on Saturday, and it could really, truly make one of several possible scenarios for the Eastern Division playoffs.
Exactly. Don't forget that we will be having Flightdeck live following the game on Saturday night. So stay tuned to our socials for when it should go. But I can tell you that it will be going on PM, because that's most likely when the game will end. But stay tuned to our socials for all that, and make sure you sign up to make sure you know when we go live and that type of stuff. So again, we will be in Toronto on Saturday. If you're going to be there, shout us out, and or make sure you hit us up on social media, and let you know that where we're going to be, and then maybe we can say hey. So obviously, big week for the Alouettes this week, and we'll be talking about it more. Not only on the Flightdeck Live, but also on next week's show. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flightdeck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.